I think we'll be able to send probably the first people to Mars in roughly 12 to 15 years. That's my estimate.
People often dream of life beyond Earth. Scientists send rovers to Mars, telescopes search the skies, and philosophers wonder if we are truly alone. But every once in a while, a story comes along that shakes the boundaries of imagination and science. One of the strangest of these stories begins not on a distant planet, but in Russia, with a boy who claimed he was not from this world. His name is Boriska Kipriyanovich, and his life would spark one of the most bizarre mysteries of the 21st century. Boriska was born in 1996 in Volgograd, a city once called Stalingrad, where history itself is heavy with war and survival. His parents were ordinary, educated Russians. His mother was a doctor. His father worked in a technical field. Nothing about their lives hinted at the storm of curiosity and controversy their child would create. From the very beginning, Boriska was different. According to his mother, he began speaking only months after birth. He did not stumble through words as most children do. He spoke in clear sentences as if language had simply been unlocked, not learned. By the age of 1.5 he could read. By 2 he was writing. Teachers and doctors were baffled. Most toddlers were barely stringing words together. Boriska, meanwhile, could sit and tell adults about space, stars, and planets. His parents insisted that they never taught him these things. They were not astronomers, not physicists. And yet their son seemed to know the universe in ways that defied explanation. At an age when children usually memorize nursery rhymes, Boriska spoke about galaxies, the structure of planets, and even the mechanics of spacecraft. His calm, matter-of-fact way of speaking unsettled those who listened. He did not sound like a child making up fantasies. He spoke as though he was remembering. The first time Boriska mentioned Mars, his mother thought it was just another one of his wild stories. Children often imagine faraway places and pretend to be heroes in them. But Boriska did not talk about Mars like a child. He said he had lived there. He said he was a Martian pilot, part of a civilization that destroyed itself in a terrible nuclear war. According to him, the surface of Mars had been scorched and poisoned long ago, forcing survivors to live underground in massive cities. He described the Martians as tall, technologically advanced beings who could travel between planets. He insisted they had discovered a way to survive for thousands of years, avoiding aging and disease. He said they could breathe carbon dioxide, and that their ships were powered not by crude fuel but by complex plasma and ionic engines. These were not the ideas of a child leafing through comic books. These were detailed, technical descriptions of a world he could not possibly have studied. As he grew older, Boriska became more open about his memories. He claimed that, in his previous life, he had traveled often to Earth. He said Mars and Earth had once been connected, that Martians had interacted with ancient civilizations here. His most striking claim was about Egypt. He told astonished listeners that the Great Pyramid of Giza still held secrets humanity had not uncovered. Beneath the paws of the Sphinx, he said, there was a hidden chamber that would one day change how humans understand their past. For the scientists who came to observe him, these stories were both fascinating and unsettling. How could a young boy know about planetary systems, ancient civilizations, or even specific astronomical details not commonly taught in schools? When questioned, Boriska would calmly explain that he was simply remembering. His soul, he said, had lived on Mars before being reborn on Earth. News of the boy from Mars spread quickly across Russia. By the early 2000s, Boriska had become a sensation in newspapers and documentaries. Some reporters called him an indigo child, a term used for children believed to possess extraordinary abilities or spiritual gifts. Others called him a fraud. But whatever people believed, his story could not be easily dismissed. Boriska did not only talk about the past. He warned about Earth's future. He said humanity was headed toward the same mistakes that destroyed Mars. Nuclear war, he warned, would one day ruin Earth if people did not change their path. His words carried a strange weight. Coming from a child, they sounded eerie, almost prophetic. Psychologists who studied him were struck by his unusual calmness, intelligence, and vocabulary. Unlike most children, he did not crave toys or play. He preferred speaking about cosmic subjects, warning adults about dangers and describing planets with unusual accuracy. He seemed wise beyond his years, but also burdened, as though carrying memories too heavy for a child's mind. Not everyone believed his story, of course. Skeptics argued that his parents could have taught him astronomy. Others claimed that his tales were exaggerated by journalists hungry for sensational stories. But even critics admitted that Boriska's knowledge was far beyond what any normal child his age could demonstrate. The mystery was not whether he was intelligent but how he could know so much. Over time, Boriska's claims grew more specific. He spoke about Martian cities, about ancient battles, about civilizations on other planets. He said Mars once had a catastrophic war with another planetary race, and that nuclear weapons had destroyed the planet's surface. This idea sounded like pure science fiction, yet in the years that followed, some scientists proposed that unusual radiation patterns on Mars might indeed suggest past nuclear events. The boy also described spacecraft with unusual detail. He claimed they were cigar-shaped, powered by plasma energy and could travel across dimensions. He said Martians had technology to move instantly between planets, slipping through portals or bending space itself. When scientists asked how he knew, he simply said, "I remember." What made Boriska's story so compelling was not just the content, but the delivery. He did not tell his tales with excitement or imagination. He spoke with the calm, precise tone of someone explaining facts. To him there was no mystery. He was simply sharing memories. His connection to Egypt fascinated many. For centuries, people have wondered about the pyramids, about lost chambers, about secrets buried beneath the Sphinx. Boriska claimed to know the truth. He said there was a hidden doorway beneath the Sphinx that had not yet been discovered. Inside, he claimed, was knowledge that could change the world. He warned that humanity was not ready for it yet, but one day the truth would emerge. As his story spread, some believers pointed to NASA discoveries as evidence supporting his claims. Scientists confirmed that Mars once had liquid water, vast rivers, and even an ocean. They found signs that the planet could have supported life long ago. They also detected traces of unusual isotopes in the Martian atmosphere, which some researchers, on the fringes of mainstream science, suggested might be remnants of a nuclear explosion. The connection between Boriska's story and real science made his words even more haunting. But not everything was clear. As he grew older, Boriska became quieter, more withdrawn. The media frenzy faded. He stopped giving interviews. Some claimed that authorities silenced him. Others believed he chose to live in peace, away from the spotlight. Conspiracy theories spread that he had returned to Mars, or that secret organizations had taken him. The boy who once shocked the world seemed to vanish. Yet the mystery of Boriska remains. Was he a genius with an overactive imagination? Was he influenced by books or hidden lessons from his parents? Or was he truly something far stranger, a soul from another planet, reborn on Earth to deliver a warning? The story of Boriska is not easily forgotten, because it touches on questions that lie deep in the human imagination. Are we alone in the universe? Could memories survive beyond one lifetime? Could Mars, a barren red world in our sky, once have been home to a great civilization? Whatever the truth, Boriska's life reminds us of how little we truly know. About Mars. About reincarnation. About the mysteries of the soul. And about the secrets buried beneath the sands of time, waiting to be uncovered. This is only the beginning of Boriska's strange journey. The more Boriska spoke, the more people wondered whether his words carried hidden truths. He was not like a child spinning fairy tales. There was no laughter in his voice, no playful exaggeration. Instead, he spoke as though carrying a heavy burden, as if his memories were not a source of wonder but of responsibility. In his stories, Mars was not just a distant planet but a place of tragedy. He described vast cities that once thrived, powered by technologies humans could not yet imagine. He told of energy systems based on plasma and fields unknown to modern science. He spoke of flying machines that could cross space in minutes, and portals that allowed instant travel between worlds. These were not wild, scattered fragments. They were complete descriptions, detailed and consistent across the years. Yet what haunted listeners most was the story of Mars' destruction. Boriska said that long ago Martian civilization reached a level of power so great that it turned on itself. Nuclear war ripped across the planet. Explosions poisoned the surface, stripped the atmosphere and left only ruins. Survivors fled underground, hiding in massive shelters where technology kept them alive. They could no longer live under the open sky. What once was a vibrant world had become barren, silent, and red. To scientists, the boy's words carried a strange echo of possibility. In the early 2000s, NASA data confirmed that Mars once had rivers, lakes, even seas. Satellite images showed dried riverbeds, floodplains, and canyons carved by water. The idea that Mars had once been alive was no longer speculation. Even more mysterious were unusual isotope readings found in the Martian atmosphere, particularly xenon-129, which some fringe researchers suggested might point to past nuclear activity. To most scientists, this theory was too radical. But to those who knew Boriska's story, it sounded eerily familiar. Boriska never spoke of these things as theories. To him they were memories. He described the pain of watching a world destroy itself. He warned that humanity was walking down the same path, blinded by greed and conflict. Nuclear war, he said, had once ended Mars. If humans did not change, it would end Earth too. His warnings were chilling, but his knowledge was even more puzzling. He spoke casually of planets, of galaxies, of cosmic laws that no child should understand. He explained that the solar system was interconnected, that civilizations had risen and fallen across its worlds. He described how Martians had once traveled to Earth often, teaching and guiding humans in their early days. It was in this context that he brought up Egypt again and again. Boriska insisted that Mars and ancient Egypt were deeply connected. He claimed that Martians had influenced the Egyptians, passing down knowledge of astronomy, architecture, and hidden energy. According to him, the Great Pyramid was more than a tomb. It was a key, a machine, perhaps even a beacon. And beneath the Sphinx, he said, lay a secret that would change everything once it was revealed. The detail that fascinated people most was his mention of a hidden chamber beneath the Sphinx's paw. Egyptologists had long debated whether such a chamber existed. Legends of a hall of records, a hidden library from a lost civilization, persisted for centuries. Mainstream archaeology dismissed it as myth. Yet in recent years, ground-penetrating scans have indeed detected anomalies beneath the Sphinx, suggesting hollow spaces. The discovery has not yet been fully investigated. But for believers in Boriska's words, this felt like proof that he had been telling the truth all along. The boy's intelligence baffled experts. Psychologists who met him reported that his IQ was unusually high, though exact numbers were never made public. Teachers said he absorbed information instantly, as though remembering rather than learning. He never needed repetition, never struggled with comprehension. His mind worked as if the knowledge was already inside him, waiting to be unlocked. But it was not only knowledge of science and history that marked him as unusual. Boriska also showed traits that many associated with so-called indigo children. This term, popular in the late 20th century, described children believed to possess extraordinary intuition, spiritual awareness, and abilities beyond the normal. Indigo children were said to be sensitive, empathetic, and sometimes psychic. To his mother and others who observed him, Boriska seemed to fit this description perfectly. From an early age, he appeared wise beyond his years. He showed little interest in toys, games, or childish distractions. Instead, he preferred conversations about the universe, about human destiny, about morality. He often spoke of humanity's need to evolve spiritually, to rise above violence and selfishness. To some, he sounded like a prophet in a child's body. To others, he sounded like a child repeating stories he had overheard. Still, even skeptics admitted that there was something unsettling about the boy. The precision of his speech, the calmness of his manner, the way he would speak about Mars as if recalling yesterday's memories, it was hard to dismiss him outright. Even when people doubted the truth of his claims, they could not deny that he was extraordinary. In interviews, Boriska sometimes spoke of his Martian life in fragments, as if remembering dreams. He described how Martians could travel between dimensions, slipping through portals that connected planets. He claimed their ships were powered not by fuel, but by a form of plasma energy that interacted with the fabric of space. He said that once, long ago, he had flown such a ship, guiding it across the solar system with ease. But he also spoke of loss. He remembered watching his planet burn. He remembered fleeing underground with others. He remembered feeling the weight of a world destroyed by its own arrogance. These memories seemed to trouble him deeply even as a child. They were not stories told with excitement. They were told with sorrow. And then there were his warnings. Again and again he urged humans to avoid repeating Mars' mistakes. He said nuclear weapons were the greatest threat to Earth, just as they had been to Mars. He said humanity must unite, must seek peace, must change its path. If not, Earth too would become barren, silent, and lifeless. Some people dismissed him as a child repeating adult fears. But others felt his words carried more weight, as if they came not from imagination but from memory. Could it be possible, they wondered, that Boriska truly was who he claimed to be? As the years passed, his story spread beyond Russia. Western media picked it up. Documentaries featured him. He became an online legend, cited in discussions of reincarnation, extraterrestrials, and lost civilizations. People across the world debated his claims. Was he proof of life on Mars? Was he an indigo child? Or was he simply a gifted boy with an extraordinary imagination? Boriska himself seemed unfazed by the attention. He never sought fame or glory. He did not try to profit from his story. He simply repeated what he remembered, calmly, almost reluctantly. And then, just as suddenly as he had appeared, he vanished from the public eye. By his teenage years, interviews stopped. Journalists could no longer reach him. His mother rarely spoke to the media. Rumors spread that he had been silenced, perhaps by authorities who did not want his story spreading further. Others believed he had chosen to retreat into a quiet life, weary of the attention. And some whispered that perhaps he had returned to where he came from. The disappearance only deepened the mystery. The boy who claimed to be from Mars had told his story, warned humanity, and then faded into silence. But his words lingered, echoing in the minds of those who heard them. Was Boriska simply a brilliant child with an active imagination? Was he manipulated or exaggerated by those around him? Or was he something far stranger, a voice from another world reminding humanity of its fragile place in the universe? The story of Boriska remains one of the most haunting mysteries of our time. And though he may have vanished from sight, the questions he raised continue to burn brightly, like the red planet itself in the night sky. This is only part of the journey. Because to truly understand Boriska's story, we must look not only at him, but at the mysteries of Mars itself, and at the strange ways science seems to align with his words. Boriska's story might have remained just a curiosity, a tale of a bright child with strange memories, if not for one haunting detail. Again and again his claims seemed to echo real discoveries made by science. When he was still a child, Boriska said that Mars was once home to rivers, lakes, and oceans, but that they had dried up after a great catastrophe. At the time, in the late 1990s, this was not common knowledge. Mars was still often described as a frozen desert, a lifeless red rock. Yet only a few years later, NASA confirmed that Mars had indeed once flowed with water. Satellite images showed ancient river valleys, deltas, and even vast floodplains. The discovery shocked scientists, but to those who remembered Boriska's words, it felt like confirmation. He also spoke of nuclear destruction. He said Mars had been ruined by war, poisoned by radiation. At first glance this sounded like pure science fiction. But then researchers noticed something unusual. Traces of isotopes like xenon-129 in the Martian atmosphere, levels far higher than expected. A few fringe scientists proposed that these could be signs of ancient nuclear explosions. The mainstream dismissed the idea, but once again Boriska's story seemed strangely aligned with scientific anomalies. Perhaps most striking were his descriptions of Martian life. He claimed Martians had survived underground after the surface became uninhabitable. Modern science has recently begun to explore this possibility. NASA rovers have found chemicals on Mars that could support microbial life. Some researchers suggest that if life exists there now, it would likely be beneath the surface, protected from radiation. What Boriska described as ancient Martian civilization mirrors what scientists now consider plausible for survival. But Boriska did not only speak about Mars. Again and again he returned to Earth, specifically to Egypt. He claimed Martians had a deep connection with the ancient Egyptians. He said the pyramids were not merely tombs, but repositories of knowledge, aligned with the stars, designed as energy structures. And he spoke of the Sphinx. Beneath its paw, he said, lay a hidden chamber that humanity had not yet discovered. For centuries, legends have told of hidden chambers beneath the Sphinx and the pyramids. Some call it the Hall of Records, a library said to hold knowledge of a lost civilization, perhaps even Atlantis. Archaeologists have long dismissed these stories as myths. Yet, in the 1990s, ground-penetrating radar detected anomalies beneath the Sphinx. Large hollow spaces appeared in the scans. To this day they remain unexcavated, locked away by Egypt's strict archaeological controls. Officially, no hidden chamber has been opened. But the mystery persists. When Boriska spoke of this chamber he was not vague. He said it contained knowledge that would change humanity forever. He insisted the secret would be revealed when humanity was ready. To believers this was not coincidence. How could a young Russian boy know of something that only sophisticated scanning technology had recently suggested? And it was not only the location he mentioned. He said the key to understanding Egypt lay in astronomy. The pyramids, he explained, were aligned with Orion's belt, built with cosmic knowledge that came from beyond Earth. Scientists have confirmed the alignment, and many researchers believe the ancient Egyptians had far greater astronomical knowledge than once assumed. Could it be, as Boriska claimed, that they had help? As word of his statements spread, more people began connecting dots. UFO researchers linked his claims to the ancient astronaut theory, the idea that extraterrestrials guided humanity's early civilizations. Spiritual groups pointed to reincarnation, suggesting Boriska was proof that souls could travel not only between bodies, but between worlds. Conspiracy theorists claimed that governments silenced him because he knew too much. What made the story even more powerful was the timing. Humanity was beginning to look toward Mars seriously. NASA's Spirit and Opportunity rovers were exploring the planet. Scientists were debating whether humans could one day colonize it. In the middle of this, a boy appeared, saying he had already lived there, warning humanity not to repeat the same mistakes. It is easy to dismiss such stories. It is harder to dismiss the coincidences. Water on Mars, radiation anomalies, underground survival, pyramid mysteries. Piece by piece, Boriska's claims mirrored discoveries and unsolved questions. Of course, skeptics remained firm. They argued that none of his claims were truly unique. Water on Mars had been speculated for decades. Pyramid legends were common in books and films. A gifted child could have absorbed these ideas from his environment. But his parents insisted otherwise. They said they never taught him these things, never exposed him to advanced science. His knowledge came unprompted from somewhere else. For his believers, Boriska was not just a child. He was a messenger. His story was a warning, that civilizations rise and fall, that war destroys even the greatest worlds, and that humanity must choose a different path. Yet, as powerful as his words were, there was one thing Boriska never gave: proof. No Martian artifact, no hidden technology, no undeniable evidence. Only words, stories, memories. That, perhaps, is why his story remains a mystery rather than a revelation. Still, the questions linger. Why did he speak of Egypt so specifically? Why did he describe details of Mars later confirmed by science? And why, after years of telling his story, did he vanish into silence? The mystery of Boriska is not just about whether he was truly from Mars. It is about what his story represents: humanity's hunger to understand our place in the cosmos, to connect the past with the stars, and to imagine that perhaps we are more than just children of Earth. As we look at Mars through telescopes and rovers, as we prepare to send humans there for the first time, the words of a Russian boy from decades ago echo louder than ever. He told us Mars was once alive. He told us war destroyed it. And he told us to be careful. The question now is whether humanity will listen. This is not the end of Boriska's story. In fact, it may only be the beginning. Because to understand his mystery fully, we must look not only at Mars and Egypt, but at the strange phenomenon of children who remember lives they should not remember. Children who, like Boriska, claim to have lived before, in places far beyond what they should know. Boriska's story may sound like science fiction, but it does not stand alone. Around the world, there have been countless cases of children who claim to remember lives they should not know. Memories of different people, different times, sometimes even different worlds. In India, for example, a young boy once led his family to a village he had never visited, pointed out a house, and identified people who had been his previous family. He spoke of a past life with such accuracy that researchers confirmed the details. In America, a child described being a World War II pilot, recalling the names of his shipmates, the battles he fought, even the model of the aircraft he flew. Every detail checked out. These cases have been studied by serious researchers, including Dr. Ian Stevenson, a professor of psychiatry at the University of Virginia. Over decades, he documented more than 2,000 children with past life memories, often backed by verifiable facts. To him, the phenomenon could not simply be dismissed as imagination. Something deeper was at work. Boriska fits into this strange pattern, but with one crucial difference: his memories reach beyond Earth. Most children who recall past lives remember ordinary human experiences. Boriska remembered another planet, another species, another civilization. If reincarnation is real, does it stop at Earth's boundaries? Or could souls travel between worlds, carrying memories across the stars? Some believe this is exactly what Boriska represents. His life is often linked with the idea of indigo children, a term that emerged in the 1970s, describing a new generation of children said to possess extraordinary intelligence, sensitivity, and psychic abilities. Indigo children are often described as old souls born into young bodies, here to guide humanity into a new age. They are said to challenge authority, resist control, and carry knowledge far beyond their years. Boriska seemed to embody many of these traits. He spoke with wisdom unusual for a child. He cared little for toys or games, instead gravitating toward discussions of cosmic destiny and humanity's future. He showed empathy, intelligence, and a sense of mission. His mother even described him as a child who felt sent here for a purpose. For those who believe in indigo children, Boriska was not alone. He was part of a wave, a new generation meant to awaken humanity to greater truths. Some spiritual groups even claimed that children like Boriska were reincarnated souls of beings from other planets, here to guide Earth through a time of crisis. Whether one believes in such ideas or not, the parallels are difficult to ignore. Across cultures, across decades, children have spoken of memories too detailed, too accurate, to be dismissed entirely. Some call it reincarnation. Some call it genetic memory. Some say it is imagination. But the mystery remains unsolved. In Boriska's case, the memories carried a clear warning. He spoke of Mars as a civilization that had destroyed itself through pride and violence. He said Earth was on the same path. To those who listened, his words were not simply a story. They were a prophecy. Skeptics, of course, argue otherwise. They say Boriska may have been a highly imaginative child, perhaps gifted with a photographic memory, perhaps exposed to advanced concepts through books or conversations. They argue that the human brain is prone to fantasy, and that children in particular can blur the line between imagination and reality. But believers point to the consistency of his story, the accuracy of his astronomical knowledge, and the way his words seem to foreshadow scientific discoveries. They ask, how could a child in rural Russia know these things if not through memory? This tension, between skepticism and belief, lies at the heart of Boriska's mystery. To some, he is proof that the soul survives death, that consciousness transcends the body, and that humanity's destiny is connected to the stars. To others, he is simply a case of human imagination running wild. But perhaps the most unsettling question is not whether Boriska's memories are real. The deeper question is this: why do so many children across the world, across cultures, speak of lives they should not remember? Why do they recall details they could not have learned? And why do their memories so often carry lessons for the living? If Boriska's story is part of a larger pattern, then perhaps he was not an anomaly. Perhaps he was one of many voices of children who, for reasons we cannot yet explain, carry echoes of other lives, other worlds, other times. And if that is true, then Boriska's warning may be more than just a story. It may be a message humanity is meant to hear. Because behind the mystery of Boriska lies a greater question, one that reaches beyond Mars, beyond reincarnation, beyond science. What if our souls are not bound to Earth at all? What if consciousness is universal, flowing like a river across planets, across galaxies, across the endless expanse of space? Boriska may have been just a boy. But his story points to a truth far greater, that life, memory, and spirit may stretch far beyond what we dare to imagine. And as we continue his story, we must return to the planet that shaped his memories, the red world we now call barren. Because if Boriska was right, Mars was not always dead. It once lived. It once thrived. And in its silence, it may still hold the secrets of a lost civilization waiting to be found. To understand Boriska's story fully, we must turn our gaze to the red planet itself. For centuries, Mars has fascinated humanity. It glows like a burning ember in the night sky, close enough to feel familiar, yet alien enough to stir our imagination. Myths and legends have always surrounded it. Gods of war named after it, stories of canals and civilizations stretching across its dusty surface. But in recent decades, science has pulled the curtain back on Mars, showing us a world both desolate and hauntingly familiar. Mars is smaller than Earth, just over half its size, with a thin atmosphere composed mostly of carbon dioxide. To modern eyes, it looks barren, a dry desert of rock and dust storms. Yet every discovery made by NASA and other space agencies suggests that this was not always the case. In fact, Mars may once have been a planet much like Earth, wet, alive, and possibly inhabited. Satellite images from orbit reveal ancient riverbeds carved into the surface. Vast valleys and canyons suggest flowing water once shaped the land. The largest of these, Valles Marineris, stretches over 2,500 miles, so massive it dwarfs Earth's Grand Canyon. Only water, flowing for millions of years, could have carved such a scar. And more recently, NASA confirmed signs of ancient lakes and deltas, frozen traces of an ocean that may once have covered much of the northern hemisphere. Boriska claimed Mars was once a thriving world before disaster struck. Science seems to agree. Billions of years ago, Mars had a thicker atmosphere, a magnetic field to protect it, and enough warmth to keep water flowing across its surface. It may even have been home to life. Then something changed. The magnetic field collapsed. Solar winds stripped away the atmosphere. The water vanished into ice and vapor. What was once a blue world turned red. Boriska's explanation was different. He spoke of war, of weapons so powerful they poisoned the planet, leaving survivors to live underground. Strangely, this too has echoes in scientific debate. Researchers have found evidence of unusual isotopes, particularly xenon-129, in the Martian atmosphere. On Earth, such isotopes are produced in nuclear reactions. Some fringe scientists argue that the presence of these isotopes could suggest ancient nuclear events on Mars. Mainstream science does not accept this conclusion, but the anomaly remains unexplained. Even more compelling is the idea of underground life. Boriska said survivors hid beneath the surface, building cities in vast caverns. Today, scientists searching for Martian life believe that if it exists, it would most likely be underground, protected from deadly radiation. Mars' surface is constantly bombarded by cosmic rays. But beneath the soil, in lava tubes and caves, conditions could be stable enough for life to survive. NASA's own research supports this theory. The boy's words seem less like wild imagination and more like echoes of scientific possibility. A planet once alive. A disaster that stripped it of habitability. Survivors forced underground. It may not prove his claims, but the parallels are undeniable. There is also the question of ancient structures. For decades, people have speculated about strange shapes on Mars, formations that some claim resemble pyramids or even a giant face staring into the sky. In the 1970s, NASA's Viking mission photographed a mesa in the Cydonia region that appeared to resemble a human face. Later, higher-resolution images revealed it to be a natural hill shaped by shadows. Yet the mystery remains alive in popular imagination. Could Mars once have held a civilization now erased by time? Boriska's stories add fuel to this fire. He claimed Martians were technologically advanced, with spacecraft powered by plasma energy, capable of interplanetary travel. He said they visited Earth, interacted with ancient civilizations, and left behind traces of their presence. His repeated mention of Egypt, of hidden chambers and cosmic knowledge, links two mysteries across planets. Science has not found proof of an ancient Martian civilization. But neither has it closed the door. We know Mars was habitable. We know it had oceans and rivers. We know it may once have been alive. The only missing piece is evidence of life itself, something NASA is still searching for today. Every rover sent to Mars brings us closer to an answer. Spirit and Opportunity revealed signs of past water. Curiosity confirmed that Mars once had conditions suitable for life. Perseverance is now collecting samples, searching for ancient microbial fossils. And future missions may return those samples to Earth, finally answering the question, did Mars ever host life? If Boriska's memories are true, then humanity is not discovering Mars for the first time. We are rediscovering it. We are walking the ruins of a world that once lived and died just as he said. What unsettles many is the warning buried within his words. If Mars truly was destroyed by nuclear war, then it is not just a story about another planet. It is a mirror held up to Earth. Humanity too has nuclear weapons. Humanity too stands on the edge of destruction. Boriska's message was clear: do not repeat our mistakes. Do not let your world end as ours did. It is a warning easy to dismiss. Yet as we explore Mars and uncover its history, we cannot help but wonder. Did a great civilization once stand where only dust lies now? Did war truly silence a planet? And if so, is Earth destined for the same fate? Boriska said he was sent here to remind us. To awaken us before it is too late. Whether one believes him or not, the message resonates. Mars may not just be another planet in our solar system. It may be a tomb, a warning, a glimpse into Earth's possible future. And if the boy was right, Mars may also still hold secrets. Hidden chambers, lost technologies, the echoes of a civilization waiting beneath the surface. Secrets that, if uncovered, could change everything we know about life, about history, and about ourselves. The question is not whether Mars holds answers. The question is whether we are ready to face them. Boriska Kipriyanovich's story is unlike any other. A boy who spoke of Mars, who warned of nuclear war, who claimed knowledge far beyond his years. For a time his name spread across the world. Journalists wrote about him, scientists debated him, and curious minds searched for clues in his words. And then, silence. In the mid-2000s, Boriska's interviews appeared across Russian media and on international websites. Videos of him speaking about Mars, about Lemuria, about Egypt, were shared online, sparking endless speculation. Yet as the years passed, Boriska himself seemed to fade from view. Public appearances stopped. No new interviews were given. Rumors began to swirl. Some say he was silenced. That government officials, alarmed by his knowledge, placed restrictions on him. Others claim he simply grew older and chose to retreat from the spotlight. After all, what child could withstand years of being called either a genius or a fraud, a prophet or a liar? There are even theories that Boriska was relocated, hidden away for study, his silence not by choice but by force. No one knows for certain. Even today when people search for him, what they find are the same stories, the same old footage circulating again and again. A mystery with no resolution. For believers, Boriska's disappearance only deepens the intrigue. They argue that his knowledge was too dangerous, that his warnings about nuclear destruction and hidden secrets were not meant for the public. They point to parallels with other cases, individuals who claimed unusual knowledge and were later discredited, silenced, or made to vanish. For skeptics, his silence is the answer itself. They say he was simply a child who grew up, whose imagination was nurtured by books, stories, or even subtle coaching from parents. As he matured, the extraordinary claims could no longer be sustained, and so the story faded away. Yet whether Boriska was a visionary, a fraud, or something in between, his tale lingers. Why? Because it touches something deep within us. Humanity has always wondered about life beyond Earth. We have always feared self-destruction. And we have always been drawn to mysteries that defy explanation. Boriska's words remind us of Mars, a planet that may once have been alive. They remind us of Egypt with its pyramids and hidden knowledge. They remind us of the fragility of civilization, of how easily progress can collapse. Perhaps that is why his story refuses to die. Because even if he was only a child with an extraordinary imagination, his warnings remain real. Nuclear war is a danger. Human arrogance is a danger. Forgetting the lessons of history is a danger. So maybe the truth of Boriska's story lies not in proving whether he came from Mars, but in listening to the message itself. A message of caution. A message of remembrance. A message that says, do not let your world fall as ours did. And here is the final mystery. If Boriska truly remembered a past life on Mars, then perhaps he is not unique. Perhaps others, too, carry fragments of forgotten worlds, buried deep in memory. Perhaps we are all connected in ways we cannot yet understand, our souls traveling across planets, across lifetimes, across the stars. The boy from Mars may be gone from the public eye, but his story lives on. It lives in the questions we still ask, in the warnings we still hear, and in the skies we still study. Every time we look at the red planet, glowing faintly in the night, we are reminded of him. Of his voice. Of his claim that Mars was once alive, and may yet hold secrets we are not ready to face. Maybe Boriska was telling the truth. Maybe he was not. But the mystery remains, suspended between science and myth, fact and imagination. A riddle written in the dust of another world. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of all, that some mysteries are not meant to be solved. They are meant to remind us of how small we are, how fragile we are, and how much more there is to learn. The boy from Mars is silent now. But the questions he raised still echo across Earth, across Mars, across the universe itself.